Scott's hut. That evening, I see them for the first time in my life. It's been less than a week since I first landed here. McMurdo, or Mactown as they say, the southernmost city on earth. Steve lent me his snowmobile, which I took up there to Cape Evans on Ross Island. I look like a red penguin in my extreme cold suit, surrounded by blood-red ice, because the sunset, now in March, stretches over several hours. "Watch out for sastrugi," Steve warned me. These are the ice grooves formed by the wind. At these temperatures, they're as hard as if you were riding over concrete waves. I explained to him that I wanted to visit Scott's hut, a little board shack built over 100 years ago by the Terra Nova expedition. The thing is a time capsule, a base camp from 1911, stocked with all sorts of supplies, most of which are still edible, because time itself freezes at this place. But I admit, I haven't been completely honest with Steve. Robert Scott and his suicide mission to the South Pole hardly interests me. It is rather the silence that pulls me out to this godforsaken place. Since my arrival, I know that I love it. Antarctica. I mean, hey, there's no nuclear waste here. No industry, no mining, no military. Just a few mad scientists, adventurers. People who don't mind spending months in extreme cold and darkness. We've traveled over the map, over the edge of the world. And everyone here has their own story in their luggage. My memory backpack also weighs a few pounds. It was never my plan to travel this far south. Just wanted to get out, away from my old life. I just followed a voice, a whisper that swelled over the years into an irrepressible pull. My relationship was in ruins. Just one sentence that burned on. I slept with him. She hung up, and the heart lay there torn to pieces. I threw myself into labor. Countless hours at the editing desk, puzzling together the clips of other people's lives into movies, and my own. I must have dreamed it away. Hours, days, months, only in front of the screens. Until this train stopped in front of me, labeled with the name of a major European city. However, I couldn't grasp it, because I had never been there. It was just a name. Then I was pulled through the door of the wagon. At first it was only a thought, a forbidden idea that became reality. Suddenly I knew with a firmness I hadn't felt in years that I wouldn't turn around. My job, the broken relationship, the city overloaded with memories. I banished everything to the past. In an internet cafe, I sent my resignation, reassured my friends and relatives by starting a traveling blog. At the same time, everything suddenly became so easy. Or, as my grandfather had always said, even the journey with 1,000 of miles begins with the first step. I was drawn farther and farther away to Singapore, Australia, New Zealand. The main thing was to keep the landscape flowing, the faces I met. Life was breathing. I felt its pulse again, lost myself to become someone new. I learned that I could easily connect with people, strangers who became my companions. I even realized that love and friendship are not objects you lose, but forces that flow from within you. A yoga teacher with whom I was on road trip for 2 weeks arranged a job for me in Christchurch as a research assistant in an Antarctic station. Actually, I thought New Zealand is the farthest distance I can get between me and my old life, but it goes even further. The flight down to the southern continent takes 8 hours, and we took off again and again for 2 days in a row, turning back halfway. The weather in Antarctica was too stormy. Then, on the third try, it finally worked. On the way, I met Raoul, a fireman, Grace, an astrophysicist, and 2 reporters from the National Science Foundation. However, we could only communicate with hands and feet, The Lockheed's 4 propellers roared so brutally that we felt the vibration throughout the aircraft and had to wear earplugs. Baggage class, Grace had joked, but it probably best described the comfort in that packed cargo hold. I felt like I was on a military operation, squeezed between oxygen tanks and all sorts of cases moored with tie-down straps. At some point we passed the Antarctic Circle, and I recognized the first ice shelves below us. They floated on the dark ocean like broken pieces of pottery. Then in McMurdo, the ice shelf was already frozen so thick that our plane could land on it. The door opened and threw an avalanche of ice air at us. Minus 20 degrees. Nice contrast to the plus 20 in New Zealand. Welcome to the 77th latitude south. Mactown is so incredibly ugly that it has charm in its own way. This is how I imagine a gold rush settlement in a modern snowy western. Muddy streets populated by terror buses with wheels as big as humans. Unloving industry buildings scattered on a hill overlooking the frozen sea. About 1,000 people live here in summer. It is the largest settlement in Antarctica and the hub for the surrounding research stations. I think you have to be pretty crazy to come down here. Antarctica is not only the coldest continent, but also the windiest, the highest, the driest, the most isolated, and, with all these comforts, of course, the least populated. Evil tongues claim that large parts of the lunar surface are better explored. But this world also has something that is difficult to put into words. Glaciers that are millions of years old. A desert formed from 80% of our planet's fresh water supplies. Ice that tells the story of eons. The last way to Scott's hut I have to continue on foot. Bare volcanic rocks rises from the snow here. I look behind me at a steaming mountain, the southernmost active volcano on our planet. Although it is snow-white, it bears the name of the god of darkness, Mount Erebus. There is hardly anything left of the evening sun. Only the moon shines so brightly that I could have read a newspaper effortlessly. I pass a wooden cross that testifies the victims of the Shackleton expedition who died here. What am I doing here? I ask myself. Maybe it was a really bad idea to drive out here. I think I'm looking for the end, the dead end, the farthest point that has been calling me for so long. This is probably as far as I can get from home. I've always wondered what will happen next. What if you cross this last threshold and there's nothing left? No more faces, no more people, only you and the silence. With my flashlight drawn, I enter the hut, stepping into another century. This place seems dead, most likely because many remains still bear witness to life. It is as if Scott and his men had left only a few minutes ago. A water pot still stands on the table. Below it is a London newspaper dated 1912. In the kitchen, ladles and cups hang next to countless cans of food. Tons of boxes of provisions pile up against the walls. I pass the officers' plank beds, the crew's bunks, an old photo lab. I almost stumble over a small pot oven. Here a box of dog cookies, next to it penguin eggs, seal bacon dangling from the ceiling. And in the horse barn, I discover the skeleton of a husky, still wearing a collar and leash. I have to think about Laika, the old dog of my family, and the thought makes me sad that this four-legged friend was left here alone. I turn off the flashlight, leave the pile of bones in silence. Maybe, I think, there's nothing at the end of the road, only impermanence and coldness. Something is moving, outside in the night sky. At first it's just a feeling, an urge that pulls me out again. as if something was approaching. But I'm alone, for sure. That's certain. At first, I think it's just a cloud. No, more a thin thread of clouds forming over Mount Erebus. But it shimmers greenish, as if some god had painted a line on the firmament with ink made of light. The inside hits me hard. The aurora, the southern lights. I've never seen any before. I pull out my camera just to be sure. Zoom in. No doubt about it. Those are not clouds. These formations move too fast for that. Like glowing colors, they pulse for a few seconds and then merge with the pitch-black night sky. An ethereal glow that seems to renew itself over and over again. My grandfather's voice comes to my mind. He used to tell me, "Polar lights are the icebergs of the thermosphere." Yes, he was so excited, and then explained, "Imagine the Earth as a boat drifting through the cosmos. The solar wind is like a river bouncing off our bow, the magnetic field. And the wake of this stream of particles, these are the auroras that flow past us." Hell, there are more and more of them. Like a child, I run forward to the hill, stretching my neck. I marvel at these fireworks, which soon took over the entire sky. Shades of red blend into green, forming pillars, palaces of light. The whole ether is on fire. I cry. I can't help it. I have the feeling that the tears are freezing directly on my cheeks, because everything comes together and time itself dissolved. What is existence but a fleeting flash, a color explosion in the night sky? The ego simply melts away, and all that remains are strings that link us to all the other people. I see my siblings and me playing around in the snow with Laika, building an igloo, dreaming ourselves into the distance. I see my ex-girlfriend and have to laugh, because she always hated cold so much, and she would never in her life have come along on such a stupid trip. And finally, I think of my grandfather again. He died years ago, when I was still in high school. In my memories, he always had a science book at hand. I think it was also his big dream to see auroras one day. But not in this life, my boy. Not in this one. Yes, if my grandfather hadn't told me all these stories, if I hadn't edited documentaries that fueled my wanderlust, if I hadn't had the space that the breakup opened for me, as shitty as it was, then, well, I probably never would have come here, to the ass of the world, to this frozen silence, to witness a miracle that fills my heart and soul. And for the first time I feel something like homesickness. I feel that it's all right, as winding and twisting as this road was. It's all right, and in its tangled, ungraspable way, so beautiful.